If it wasn't for Dagga or cannabis, in all probability I would never have met Jules and Myrtle, who more affectionately became known as the Dagga Couple in South Africa. I remember it was early in 2013, after we both had been arrested and charged with dealing in cannabis, that they came down to Cape Town and we met in the Parliamentary Gardens in Cape Town to discuss the ways of challenging these unjust and immoral laws. They ended up going to the Gauteng High Court and I approached the Cape Town High Court in order to challenge these laws. Just as I am very passionate and insistent about my right to use cannabis as a Rastafari and as an indigenous person, Jules would be the first person to tell you, my body, therefore my right to use cannabis. And the South African Constitution, remarkably, compels us to tolerate and respect both these opinions. Jules Stobbs was not afraid to speak his truth, and at times this rubbed some people up the wrong way. But what I will always remember was the fearlessness of his approach and his willingness to speak his truth, whether he was standing in front of the United Nations, the High Court, or a rural community. In a time where masks are commonplace, Jules was open-faced about the potential of cannabis to redress the socio-economic ills that affect most South Africans. He knew that cannabis provides a realistic chance of hope, jobs, and economic regeneration for all. How ironic that the desperation and the hopelessness that feeds the violence that ultimately took his life is the very thing that Jules knew cannabis could remedy. The best way for us to honor the legacy and the memory of Jules is for us as a society to create just and inclusive African cannabis laws that would give us an immediate post-COVID-19 economic and social restoration solution. We earnestly call upon our government, our executive, and our president to seize the initiative that cannabis offers us now in order to create a participatory cannabis industry that would provide food, clothes, shelter, fiber, and medicine for all of the people in South Africa. And in the words of Jules and Myrtle, fields of green for all.
Well, the whole point of this convention was, if we had spent all of this time and effort getting all of these people to the trial, let's open it up to the public. Let's share all of this knowledge with the people. And we initially thought that we'd do it in some little place somewhere and it would be on an ad hoc basis, but we've had years to think of this. And then we realized today is actually the day the cops rocked up at my house and arrested me in the first place. It's literally 7 years today. And that's why we did it on this day and not the next day or any other day. So this is our birthday. And we stood on stage today, in 7 years today, I had an SAPS gun in my cheek for 5 hours, semi-naked in my kitchen. And now I'm in front of 600 doctors, so we made it so far. And we just keep going and going and going. And we've already got out of it what we wanted out of it, and that is for the whole network to start talking together. There's a lot of head shaking in there. There's a lot of very conservative doctors going, oh, I don't know about that information. I can't process. That's contrary to everything I've been told as a doctor. Well, that's why they're here, because they've been told a pack of lies about the cannabis plant. And you saw Tony Budden talk about a multitude of other uses. You talk about me, I use it for specifically really one use. And I have done, I unashamedly use it for one use. I enjoy its narcotic effects. And it is my right to use it as a narcotic. And I'm trying to prove it in a court of law. If I'd gone in there with a terminal disease, it might well have been over by now. So somebody would have given me cancer because somehow somebody with a terminal disease has more human rights than me. So I'm fighting for my rights as a psychonaut. I enjoy this stuff and I enjoy getting high. So what I see in there when Donald Abrahams was speaking before lunch was a bunch of people on their phones. And then after 10 minutes it was, and then they put their phones out. After 20 minutes they're all, because he's just spoken the truth. He's the only man in the world that's done human trials in recent history on cannabis users. So we thought we'd just throw him into the mix to change the paradigm of what people think about Dagga in this country. So with a hemp plantation, you could take it in the middle of the Northern Cape and grow a field of green for 40 kilometres in any direction. and you could have a methanol plant there, way away from people. You don't need many people to make a methanol plant. And I would like one day to be able to fill my bakkie with something I grew in the ground. That's what I would like to do with the industrial aspects of it. But of course, South Africa goes, we need jobs. So I think that industry would create many, many jobs. The hemp industry, probably. Clothes, I don't know, they're quite bad fitting. The t-shirts right up at the back, they're all very boring colours, and the socks itch. So I'm not really into that aspect of it. And health, skin products, it's not my bag, but it'll be somebody's bag one day, and quite rightly so. So to me, it's a no-brainer that because hemp looks like weed, it's banned. It is quite a fearful thing taken on the state, and when you get into that high court, it's very austere, it's very masculine and macho, and it's oppressive wood paneling and austere seats and all these protocols. In fact, for the first 3 days of the trial, all I saw were these people in weird clothes. Actually, it was the most polite way of saying fuck off to someone I'd ever seen. I presume that fuck off, sir, I do declare fuck off. And that's what they were doing for 3 days. It was bizarre. Anyway, it was at our expense, because we had a plan to put people on the stand and do our thing, and all they wanted to do was stop us in our tracks. And with some clever folk in the background and quite a lot of tenacity and no sleep, the show went on, and we live streamed it, and that is a complete coup. So the advocate years ago, that advocate's in the building now. Absolutely amazing. 7 years later, that advocate is here today to see our successes. He said you will need to get a huge social campaign going to get people on your side. And you're going to have to form a non-profit company to legitimise yourself, because at the moment you're just two weed smokers. So that's what we did. Cut to a couple of years later, we pick up an advocate who says, I'm dying of cancer, but cannabis is keeping me alive. If you can keep me alive with cancer, I'll do anything you want. And he says, you've got to understand here that nobody's in the dock in the High Court. We're the plaintiffs. The defendants, the state, are trying to stop us from changing the laws. So it's actually the trial that's on plant. He coined the phrase, the trial of the plant, because it is the plant that is on trial. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? Is it psycho? Is it not psycho? So that man died, and it saddened us, and Myrtle had a tear in her eye when she said it today in her speech. I knew she would. So he was the man that coined the phrase, the trial of the plant. And the reason that we put it together as a full-on trial with people from all over the world was, we're only going to do this once. This is it. This is the definitive argument for every government in the world as to how prohibition is a screaming failure. So I don't know how I ended up doing it, because somebody should have done it 50 years ago. Somebody should have thought, wait a minute, it's my human right to put in my body whatever I want. But they haven't. I don't know why it ended up being me. I always find it really weird that it was me that did it. And now we are in the High Court. We set a precedent in law in 2012. The judge in the Pretoria High Court said, you know what, you've got a point. It may well be your constitutional right to put in your body whatever you want. Well, pertaining to cannabis.